Well, hello, future researcher, and welcome to the wonderful world of academic research and Dr. Stieber's Inorganic Lab. Now, you may be asking yourself, what can I do to have a successful start to my student research? Well, I'm glad you asked because we're here to show you. Now, first and foremost, you'll need a lab notebook. Not just one, but two. When writing anything down, always be sure to keep it written within one of your two lab notebooks. They will be key to maintaining proper lab etiquette and avoid getting into any trouble down the road. Having two should be more than enough to keep your data and records in, but if you fill one up, you can always add another. Other items that will be vital to have at your disposal will be goggles, gloves, and an appropriate lab coat. You can use your own from class or the ones provided in the lab. Additionally, pens are a must. Your lab book will be considered a legal document, and any findings and data collected in it will need to be written in permanent ink. When writing your notes down, you have a variety of colors to choose from. Blue or black. Go crazy. That being said, having these tools and the urge to learn, you'll be just fine in your research journey. Now, notebook etiquette. At the forefront of your notebook, we'll have the book cover. Wow! So, we're going to go over exactly how to write everything down in your lab notebook that will stay in lab at all times. For example, fellow researcher Mel has generously donated her notebook to be used for an example. First things first, you're going to want to write your full name. This will help prevent anyone from accidentally stealing and claiming any data you've collected as your own. Then, you'll assign it a book number. In this case, these are her first two, so they will be labeled Notebook 1 and Notebook 2. Her Notebook 1 will contain everything she's done in lab, so notes, observations, values, and safety hazard information of chemicals she may come in contact with. And as mentioned earlier, please remember that Notebook 1 will never leave the lab, versus your second lab notebook, which will mainly contain calculations, schemes of your experiments, and other side notes or drawings of your choosing. This will be useful to avoid writing on loose papers that can be lost and potentially losing valuable information. Alright, now on to the bulk of our lesson, notebook formatting. This will typically entail the table of contents, page numbering, data entry, titling, reaction schemes, and overall cleanliness. Now, onto the first page, we're going to have our table of contents. Right at the top, you go ahead and label your first page TOC, or you can go ahead and write out table of contents. Right under that is when you'll begin to name and write all the experiments that you've done over the past semester and or the years. And in typical fashion, the left-hand margin will be reserved for page numbering. You'll have the choice of either writing this the first page that the experiment starts on, or you can write the whole range of pages used. And as you can see here on the right, you'll just go ahead and need to write the first date that the experiment was started. Now, onto page and dating. Here's an example of how one of your future pages may look. Some key things to notice though, as this person filled out their notebook. Page number. All pages, not including your table of contents, will be numbered at the bottom right hand corner if it's your right page, and the bottom left for your left page. In addition to the page numbers, when continuing your records onto multiple pages, be sure to include a note at the bottom of the page stating what page you continued onto. Now regarding your logging entries, notice the left column. Each new day you add to an existing experiment or start a new one, always date it with the year, month, day format, as it can be seen here. Now, on to maybe the more confusing part of your notebook formatting, which will be labeling your experiments. As you can see here on the top left-hand corner, at the beginning of every experiment that we do now, you're going to go ahead and start using what we call a label code, which is used to indicate the experiment that you're doing. So the one we have here is MM01007. Now it may seem confusing, so we're going to go ahead and break it down. On the book cover of Mel's lab notebook, her first name starts with an M, and her last name starts with an M, so those two M's you see are just her initials. And then the next two numbers you see, 01, is to indicate the notebook number of the notebook that you're using. In this case, this would be her notebook 1. And at the very end, 007, that'll be the page that the experiment starts on. In her case, it'll be page 7. And so if we put that all together, you get the label code for hers, MM01007. It's that easy. Now, onto reaction schemes and data entry. If you're doing a lot of wet chemistry, it can be hard to remember all of your reactions and their steps, so be sure to write down each one so you can see what you're making during each step. Next is the data itself. Let's take a look at the notebook thus far. For example, here we put down values we were given and that we calculated down the road. Below that, you're going to want to keep track of all the chemicals you use. So after calculating essential values and recording information, you'll need to create a safety sheet containing the hazards based on this list. And that brings us to the end of your notebook formatting. If you follow these prompts and practice them, your lab notebook will come out just acceptable. Remember to write as neatly and clearly as possible when entering and drawing anything, with as much detail as you can, in order to allow future readers who pick up your notebook to replicate your experiments without any ambiguity.